Most people think the way to get ahead on their home loan is to try and get a lower interest rate or pay extra into the loan. Look, both of those things can definitely help. But if you're only focusing on those, then you're not getting the full story. Because what a lot of homeowners miss is it's not just about rates or extra repayments, it's how you structure things as well. And making changes there can actually make some substantial differences. In fact, with the right structure in place, it's possible to even have a slightly higher interest rate and still pay off your home loan faster than using some of the approaches that we're typically told to follow. Hi, I'm Greg from More Than Accountants, and I've been helping homeowners for over 20 years get on top of their finances and get a plan in place to put themselves in a much better financial position down the track. So what I wanted to walk you through today was a bit of a comparison between some of the approaches we're typically told to take and some of the things that you could potentially take on that might actually help you pay off your home loan a lot sooner. Anyway, let's dive into it.
So we're going to have a look at an example, a couple of comparisons between different approaches in terms of trying to pay off the home loan sooner. And we're going to base it on a specific scenario so we can sort of look at how those numbers stack up against each other. So we've got a household that's got a home loan outstanding, or the outstanding balance is $500,000. They're currently paying an interest rate of 6% on that loan. Their living expenses are $5,500 a month, and the total income for the household is $180. So if you were only paying the minimum amount on that loan, then obviously it's going to take you 30 years to pay that loan off. And in terms of the interest, if we sort of just jump in here to this report, so over the full 30 years, if you're only paying the minimum on that loan, the total interest you'd expect to pay is, basically about $579,000. If you were going to only pay the minimum, that's what you'd be looking at paying off. So, like obviously, typical scenario for most people is they'll look at, okay, what if I pay some extra into the loan? What sort of difference can that make? Can that pay it off a lot sooner? So if we said we're going to pay an extra $1,000 a month into that loan, on top of the minimum repayments, then that sort of cuts our loan term down by a fair chunk. In actual fact, again, we jump across into the analysis on that. That's going to result in the total loan term coming down to 16.4 years. So getting close to pretty much halving that, which is pretty good. So certainly not knocking that, and paying extra in definitely makes a difference. The other thing is, like, let's say if we were doing that and we were able to get the rate discounted a little bit as well. So, if we were 6% and we got that down to 5.5%, what difference would that make? Not a lot in terms of the loan term. But again, if we jump across into the analysis here, and we sort of scroll down and have a look at that, brings in the loan term to just under 16 years. So, basically cuts a fair few months off that loan, almost getting close to a year, let's say, and brings that interest bill down again. So those two things combined, putting in extra as the loan and obviously reducing the rates, definitely can make an impact, no doubt about that at all. What I wanted to also then show you was actually what our clients are doing in terms of the structure that we're recommending to them and how that sort of plays out. You can see straight away the loan term comes down substantially. So where before we were around, even with those extra repayments and that lower rate, we were basically sitting around 15, 16 years. We've now coming down to around about 8 years that we could expect to potentially pay that loan out by. And again, if we jump across and have a look at the numbers in terms of the analysis on that, so interest wise, if you remember right back at our start point, we're at 579. Now we can potentially pull that down to about 138,000, and our loan terms around about 8.2 years, let's call it. So the other thing interesting to look at is just by adopting that structure, even if we push the rates up a bit. So we could jump at a whole percent in terms of from where we were. So from up to 6 to 7%, you can see that, yes, that makes a difference. It takes the loan term up by about another year. So we're out to about 9 years, but still well below those scenarios that we were looking at as well. So obviously, as we're saying, like extra payments into the loan and trying to get a lower rate definitely makes a difference, but it's also how you use your money that's going to make a big impact as well. In fact, it probably becomes the most important aspect of all those, because as we can see, even if we move those rates up or down, yes, they can make a little bit of a difference, but obviously it's more how you focus and channel your money that's going to have the biggest impact of all in terms of your ability to pay off that loan sooner. So in the notes below, I've actually included a link there that's got a cheat sheet in there, which goes into a bit of detail in terms of how we're structuring things for clients. What's covered in there are things that you could probably start implementing pretty quickly and trying to start getting some results there. So if you've got a chance, go and have a look at that. The other thing I'll just sort of flag is once you're sort of on top of this stuff, like you got a bit of control and you're making some headway on your home loan, then you're no longer chasing your tail, and that sort of frees you up a bit and starting to think a bit longer term about planning forward in terms of, aiming for things like retirement, those sort of things, and looking at your numbers on that. That's something that sort of comes up for everyone at some point in time, but certainly for our clients, when you make some headway and get some control and get on top of this sort of stuff, it then frees you up to start thinking about those other things. I've put a couple of things in the notes below as well. So if you're at that point, there's a couple of things that you probably need to think about before you start going off down that track, or at least what I'd suggest to have a think about it. So that might be helpful as well if you want to have a look at that.
So look, I hope you found that helpful. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to drop those in the comments below. I'll see you in the next video.